Hello viewers and welcome to another episode of the Running Mech, a Lancer battle report series where I put the players against the NPC. In this episode, let's talk about a whole bunch of things. So, before explaining what the session was about, I would like to thank Robert, SGT Breyer, Cyanic, and Akirio for joining the session. Anyway, when I was reading No Room for a Wallflower Part 1, I realized, I might have been making things too hard. First thing first, yes, I'm running one shot, which means player could expend all their resources without consequence and I put them up against a rather large enemy force to counter this. However, that's not how Lancer really works, since each mission will be separated into multiple battles and the player has to balance their resource out while also not facing a literal wave of enemies, and since I start the series to show people how Lancer plays and feels like, I'm going to change that. So, I'm going to take a random page out of Wallflower and then give it a couple go. This quickly made me realize one thing, the map plays a big role in a session too. You probably have noticed that the map I made before is very flat and open and kind of boring to be honest. A map should be filled with stuff that can both aid or impede both the players and the NPC. Episode 6, which is repeatedly mentioned by my players as one of the more interesting session, has a map that's both wide open but also separates into 3 routes, meaning both sides have to decide to go all in on one route or split up into different routes, with later path turns out to be the correct one for the players. For this session, the map plays a role in slowing down the player's path to the top, because the primary objective of the session is to eliminate the bombard. Everything else is secondary, and they are right at the top of the map. There's 2 paths for the players to physically go with. One is slowly moving through the river, which is presented as difficult terrain, but it has a lot of cover and a lot of space. The other path goes through the incomplete bridge and jumps over, but it has 0 cover and is very tight and all the NPC are right in front of the player. That is, like I said, if the player needs to physically go through those obstacles, because this is Lancer, there's always like several dozen solutions to one problem. Also there's a Sun Tzu right here and you guys could probably tell what's going to happen already. Oh, and since I'm trying to simulate how players will be conserving their resources in a one-shot where expending all your resources have no consequence, I'm making some changes to simulate that. In this session along with all future ones, I'm making the overcharge cost straight to the 4th heat cost, because rampant overcharge basically makes the player mechs 1.5 times stronger. I will also be maintaining the level at license level 4 because that's the maximum level for Wallflower until the campaign end, and it's much simpler. Anyway, let's start off the session with round 1. Immediately, the players came out with a dual aspect strategy to get to the bombard. One was, just get in front of their face and punch them, the other one, teleport the bombard to their location, and then punch them, and they are going to do both at once. Immediately after the mission starts, Guinevere Ferris lashed inherent acts of mercy upward, then ran straight up the bridge themselves, and put down a perimeter control plate at repulse mode. Elite Hollow Sentinel slid over a cover to move towards the 2, and activated Eye of Midnight so it can do Overwatch every turn, then locked onto acts of mercy. 20 Quid immediately pops their core for Art of War, moved to a bush, set down their blink anchor, a hive drone, and then overcharge at 4th heat cost, which is quite doable because they have 9 heat cap, got really lucky, and then activated Swarm Body, turning the place into a goddamn blender. Hollow Assault rushed down, burst fire at Guinevere, who not only has kinetic resistance, but they also just mag parried the attack and caused it to miss completely, and then prepared an action to invade anyone that got inside its sensor range. Right as Nader of None starts their turn, 20 Quid teleport them forward with 1 charge of Art of War, who then just have enough speed to move up, pop their core for glitch time, and then invade the hollow bombard that was sitting all the way on the other side of the map with Beacon. This normally would just swap the location of both the bombard and Nader of None, but with 20 Quid's blink anchor, the bombard got teleported right next to them, and with how much damage Nader took, they also reset themselves to recover their health back, teleporting them right next to 20 quid by a blink anchor. The Hive drone immediately got to work on the hollow bombard, dealing a singular damage. The other hollow bombard instead saw a great opportunity and then fired at that massive pile of targets, including its twin. Oh, and one more thing that I completely forgot about bombard in the previous episode, they deal more damage the more targets they are in the blast radius. And with 5 targets at tier 1, that's 13 bloody damage, but we count in 11 only in this case, so that's an error. This would have been devastating, except since all the players have soft cover from Hive drone, they got more difficulty, but that kinda didn't matter because the rolls absolutely sucked. The only one that got sent to heaven is the bombard, and the Hive drone that got completely annihilated in one shot. The only reason why the bombard is not dead is because of its innate resistance to long-range attack. It also got knocked away from the players because of an optional trait the bombard has, which was what I intended to do in the first place, but that didn't matter, as you will soon find out. As the last player to go, Inherent Acts of Mercy activated Xiao Li's ingenuity and just punched everything. Immediately, they activated the Type 3 shield as protocol against the Elite Sentinel, moved one space up, and then Xiao Li had their way onto the PCP, sending them flying over the bridge. This movement then activated Prepared Skirmish from Sentinel, which didn't exist at all. That was a misclick. But it did serve as an important lesson, because while the non-existing prepared attack hit, the actual effect I wanted, which is extremely devastating, cannot be activated because it's not an Overwatch, and when Acts of Mercy continue to move, I can't Overwatch again because I just spent my reaction. Basically, if you are using some reaction-based systems, don't fucking use Prepare, it sucks. Anyway, while Acts of Mercy took some damage, it didn't stop them from their goal of punching the shit out of the bridge, some fallen pylons, and then proceeded to demolish a hollow bombard by literally punching everything around them except them. Then, they moved towards the assault with the last of their movement, get overwatched by the hollow barricade grunt which missed, and then locked onto the assault, consumed said lock on, and slashed at them with their nanocarbon sword, which has Molten Wreath. The Molten Wreath then shotgunned shrapnel back at Acts of Mercy and the barricade, which, since Acts of Mercy has 2 armor, it did nothing to them. The barricade wasn't so lucky, however. In the face of this attack, Hollow Assault hunkered down to gain resistance against it. And that's Inherent Acts of Mercy's turnover, gaining back 6 charges for Xiao Li's ingenuity for all the destruction they made, moving at the speed of fists. If that doesn't convince you to start using melee more often, then I'm not sure what can. Also, we forgot about destructive swing trait that Zheng has. Anyway, the rest of the round 1 is only consisted of NPC's turn. The last hollow barricade grunt quickly put down a giant cover, shot at Inherent Acts of Mercy, consuming the lock-on in the process, and then invaded them, slowing and impairing them. The remaining hollow bombards started their turn, and they immediately died because they got teleported right back with 20 quid's Art of War and got shredded by their swarm body. Primary objective of the session, achieved in round 1. The Elite Hollow Sentinel, seeing that both the bombard were dead, deactivated Eye of Midnight to run the hell away, arriving right at the edge of the map, and will escape in one turn. Round 1 ended, and round 2 began. Nadir of None, got teleported up by Act of War again, moved up by 1, then used Unhinged Chronology on the hollow barricade, to give them haste, which gives them free boost. So here's the thing about glitch time, the only thing mattered is that the target took some effect while being inside the Lich's sensor range. The any character part, really means any character, including yourself. So, as soon as barricade got haste, Nadir of None used glitch time and arrived in place of the barricade, who got moved aside, crossing half of the goddamn map, and received the haste, from themselves. Then, Nadir of None moved around the size 2 cover and used anti-linear time on Inherent Acts of Mercy, transferring all their debuffs to them. However, this still means that the Sentinel will escape in time, which is why Nadir of None overcharged, taking a stress for overheating which impaired them again, and invade the Sentinel to use Beacon. This, teleport the Elite Sentinel, who was right on the verge of escaping, right onto the other side of the map thanks to 20 quid's blink anchor. What a massive galaxy brain turn. Also, Nadir of None couldn't be teleported in place of the Sentinel because they are slowed, but the Sentinel was still going to get screwed. The Elite Hollow Sentinel resisted Swarm Body from 20 quid, then barraged at them, shooting and slashing with its weapons, which honestly didn't do much, and then attempted to run away. Attempted, because this triggered Overwatch attack from 20 Quid, who has a warp rifle, which crit, and has overpowered caliber, and just did 8 goddamn damage. This teleport the sentinel sideway and right in front of Guinevere. Also the light nexus in the same main/auxiliary mount dealt 3 damage to the sentinel, as if that wasn't insulting enough. Guinevere took the next turn, receiving a leadership dice from Nader of None, which they converted to more damage with their overpowered war pike, which they used to skirmish with the sentinel, which crit, again, dealing a massive 16 damage, along with a knife for 2 damage, enough to structure the sentinel, destroying one of their system. Also, as a reminder, Guinevere has Spaceborne 3, which on a melee attack, gives +1 difficulty to the target on all checks or saves to avoid knockback, knock prone, slowed, or immobilized until the end of their next turn. They immediately took advantage of this with Ferris Lash, pulling the sentinel towards them, knocking it prone. Hollow Assault then shot at Inherent Acts of Mercy and ran away, receiving an Overwatch attack from them because Threat 3 is so good, which they gained resistance to with Hunker Down again. Inherent Acts of Mercy, seemingly pissed about that, punched their way towards the assault. With leadership dice from Nader of None again, Acts of Mercy consumed it for more accuracy and barraged at the assault, first with Charged Blade which hit, then a ram from Duelist after a Blade Master dice was consumed which missed. And then a final nanocarbon sword slash that cleaved the assault in half, ending it. Acts of Mercy then continued to punch their way towards the remaining barricade, discombobulating it, and then punched down the bridge, jumping over the gap, leaped off the PCP, and arriving right next to the elite sentinel. Reaching 5 charges for Xiao Li's ingenuity at the end of their turn, and also creating a hard cover behind the sentinel from destructive swing. Elite Hollow Sentinel got up from prone, and barraged again, this time at Guinevere, but the shotgun blast missed, and while its sword hit, it just bounced off. Then, at the end of its turn, 20 Quid teleported with Art of War, and used Blink Charge to bring it right back at them. At this point the sentinel has traveled 2.5 times the map length already, 0.5 on its own. The sentinel managed to resist the swarm once again, but 20 Quid just didn't care as they stabilized to cool down their heat and reload their warp rifle, then overcharged to gain another free action. With crack shot, combined arms, and overpowered caliber, 20 Quid fired the warp rifle at the sentinel, which crit, again, dealing a ridiculous 14 damage, completely annihilating the sentinel, and then teleporting its carcass right into the river like the garbage it is. Do not actually pollute river by throwing garbage into it, I'm not asking, this is an order you must follow on the pain of death. Anyway, with all the NPC dead, this session is finished. Now, let's analyze it. Now I'm sure you have noticed that the session is relatively short, and if the players are more used to their mechs, it would have gotten even shorter. At slightly less than 2 hours, this is a lot shorter than my usual session, but honestly this is a good thing. When you are running a campaign, a fight really shouldn't take up an entire session unless it's a big dramatic one that presents the climax of an arc or a mission. And while I have noticed that some people are saying that Wallflower mission is following the guideline in the main book and thus is on the easier side, I would say that people are mistaken about that, because I would classify what I had run in my previous Running Mech video as hard mode, with Wallflower being normal mode. And hell, despite this being a normal easy fight, had this session gone bad, the player would have expended a lot of resources. If I wasn't being dumb with the sentinel and its Overwatch actually hit Inherent Acts of Mercy, they would get completely shut down, and if the bombard did successfully hit Nader of None and 20 Quid, they would have taken a lot of damage, and Nader would actually get structure because they had reset themselves already. This session is, as a whole, having the players being extremely lucky with their roll while the NPC being very unlucky once again. Hell, the only stress damage the player took is self-inflicted. Honestly, take a look at the final count. 3 of the player mechs have expended their core to achieve the ridiculous result they have, and even 20 Quid has practically ran out of charges for Blink Anchor, so they could only achieve their shenanigans for exactly 1 more time, and that's it? That's a lot of resources spent for 1 session, but if the players have Grease Monkey, this level of consumption could be easily managed. Do not underestimate Grease Monkey, it's a useful talent to patch up any mistake one has made. I think this session should really show future game masters on the importance of not putting all your focus on the NPC, because the map is as important as a part of the characteristic of the session too. If I didn't follow the guideline in the Wallflower book, I probably will just make another boring open map with some covers here and there. Instead, the placement of difficult terrain made the players required to be smart to figure out how to get over it. It feels good to smash an enemy apart with big damage, but it feels even better when you figure out a galaxy brain move that surprises everyone on the board. Anyway, time to talk about the player's performance, and oh boy, where do I even begin? Maximum shenanigan is how I would describe the whole thing, as this session perfectly demonstrated that a team that has 3 supports isn't remotely lacking in the damage department at all, and also a melee fighter isn't helpless at long range at all. Inherent Acts of Mercy basically did the most destruction on the NPC by taking out 4 targets at once, using its core power for enormous mobility to cross over the entire map, but that will not occur this smoothly without support from Nadir of None and Guinevere. Guinevere gave the boost Inherent Acts of Mercy required to get over the bridge, and managed to deal quite a lot of damage when an enemy showed up besides them, thanks to 20 Quid, who definitely pushed the potential of Sunza to the limit as they basically yoinked a couple NPC across the map and tore them apart. But that also won't happen due to Nadir of None, who is basically the best support in the entire session for making 20 Quid's build even possible and got rid of status effect from Inherent Acts of Mercy. All in all, excellent performance from the player team here. As for the NPC side, the double bombard is actually a massive threat to the players had they managed to fire more than once while anyone grouped up. It was fortunate for the players that they got very lucky with their strategies to deal with these two. With the main threat gone, however, there wasn't much the rest of the NPC could do to damage the players. Assault is good but there's only one, Sentinel is also good but again there's only one, and also I kept fucking up with the Midnight Overwatch stuff, and Barricade are here to slow people down but there's no objective to slow them down from after the death of the Bombard. Once again, practically everything that could go terribly wrong with the player did not happen at all, and that's how they managed to finish this mission in round 2. But hey, that's what high risk high reward means, sometimes the risk just doesn't appear. Anyway, that's all for this episode. It was really fun running the session for this video, and I will see you all next time. Hello there, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell button. If you really want to support my channel, you could visit my Patreon page, or buy me some coffee, links in the description. Anyway, have a nice day.